All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order, the regular council meeting of April 7th, 2026. First order of business is going to be to adopt the agenda, but we have a few emerging adjustments we need to make. We have an exciting highway update coming. Mr. Kevin Blanchette is going to present to us. We need to add that on as item 7A on the agenda, and then just due to some recusals and people wanting to leave early, we're going to move some items around for the closed sessions. So we'll also be looking to move item 11B to the end of the closed session agenda to make that one 11C. If I get a motion to move the agenda as amended, it would be appreciated. Councillor Singh.
Motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
Okay, any conversation? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And that brings us right into the adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes from someone? Councillor McDonald.
I make that motion.
Okay, conversation. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried unanimously. And then let's dive into delegations. Item 6A, we have Explore Cochrane here to present. It's good to see you.
Hello, everyone. That was quicker than I was expecting. Thanks so much for having me. So I think I've met all of you except for Councillor Gale. I'm Calandra Caulfield. I'm the Executive Director of the Cochrane Tourism Association. And I want to be respectful of your time today. I tried to create an hour-long presentation, but Mark held me back. So here I am with 10 minutes for you. I'm going to put a lot in here. I want to start by figuring out how to change this down. No. There we go. So I want to start by sharing a bigger scope, provincial scope, to understand what's happening in tourism in this province. So tourism is actually Alberta's 4th largest export sector. It's larger than Alberta beef. And the goal in the province is to increase visitor spending by 10 billion by 2035. So we're going to go from 15 billion to 25 billion by 2035. Cochrane has been identified as one of the 10 provincial TDZs, or tourism development zones. And simply put, that just means that the province thinks that there is an opportunity in the Cochrane-Sundre Bighorn area to develop tourism. We are seeing this in Cochrane. We're seeing this growth. This is data from Destination Canada that from 2024 to 2025, we saw a 15% increase in visitor spending. Visitor spending since the before COVID times, which is sort of our baseline, is up 63%. And while I can't give you exact numbers because of a data privacy agreement, I can share with you that we are approaching $100 million in visitor spending annually in Cochrane, and that is just in our municipality. That doesn't include any of the external areas. And you can see that growth trend there on that graph. So I hear this question on social media: are we a destination? Is it just people coming, for McKay's and stopping through? And the data tells us that yes, we are a visitor destination. More than a quarter of our visitors are Canadians from outside of Alberta, and more than a quarter of our visitors are international visitors. They are from outside of Canada. And our international visitor spending has gone up 59% since 2019, and we want to see these international visitors, they stay longer, they get more engaged with our community, and they spend a little bit more money. I'm going to suggest there's a couple reasons this trend is going to continue. The first one is a potential rail connection. While that project has not been confirmed and it's a long-term project, it would completely change the landscape of tourism in Cochrane if it did happen. International events like the Ironman is going to raise awareness of our community, and we're already starting to see overflow from the Canadian Rockies, where hotel rooms in the summer can be $800 to $2,000 a night. So those people are coming to our community at this point, especially in the summer. So that means that we have a really exciting opportunity here in Cochrane for tourism. I shared the economic data with you. I know that's important data. We know that tourism can generate revenue without residential growth. We know that tourism development can relieve pressure on a residential tax base, and we know that it can generate employment. In 2021, which was a low tourism employment year, 11% of our residents were employed in tourism. We can expect that is higher now. But there's some other really important things outside of that economic realm that tourism can do. Tourism can increase the quality of life for residents. We can have facilities, restaurants, spas that couldn't otherwise be supported if they didn't have visitor revenue. Tourism can preserve and celebrate culture. We see that through events. We see that through experiences like the branding experience that the Stockmans has developed. And it can surprisingly also support environmental well-being. A really good example of that is the Cochrane Farmers Market. I don't know if you know that all of the money that the Cochrane Farmers Market makes, so that CIAC makes, goes back into environmental projects. And that is a heavily supported tourism activity. So who are we? We're Explore Cochrane. That's just our visitor-facing name for the Cochrane Tourism Association. We've been around for 19 years, and we're regional in scope. So that means we have partners outside of the town limits, and we see our destination as a region, not just our town. We're a DMO, or Destination Management Organization. I put that in bold because it used to be Destination Marketing Organization, but our scope is broader. We engage in destination planning, development, and marketing. And our organization considers itself stewards of this destination. Our goal is to grow tourism in a way that benefits our community. And that is the core of everything that we do. Both of those pieces together, grow, benefit. So a little bit about where our money comes from. 56% of our revenue is visitor funded. So that's money coming from Travel Alberta and money coming from the DMF, or Destination Marketing Fund. That's hotels who collect money and transfer it to us. That's an optional fund. But you can see that municipal operating grant is still quite important. What we're investing that money in, as an emerging destination, we're still investing the largest component into marketing. That's just over 40%. But 31% of our revenue goes to destination development and animation. That's just a fancy way of saying special events and things that make the town more exciting to visit. We were really intentional about creating a reserve after COVID and after the damage to the Canalta, which impacted our revenues. So by 2025, we were able to invest 100% of the revenue in our projects. So Mayor Nagel, you asked us to talk a little bit about some of our successes. This picture of Dawn makes me smile every time, so I had to share it as part of my transition. But there's a whole bunch of things that we're doing, and this is just really a high-level example. One of the first things we're doing is we're investing, that says community under the timer there, community and culture. We did a resident contest that I told you about last year. That was to get our residents, to help them get excited about our region. We had 19 submissions. Cochrane Discovery Days is a great example of how we're sharing the culture of Cochrane. That's a project that we work with 11 community partners. We saw a lot of success and great event satisfaction from that event last year. And I have a significant report I'm happy to share about that entire event. And Christmas in Cochrane is a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. That's specifically directed at our retail partners. And the intention is to get our residents and visitors to come spend their money in Cochrane instead of spending their money with Amazon. We have a pretty sturdy marketing program. Last year we had four distinct marketing campaigns. We had almost 1 million impressions between paid and organic, and we saw lots of measurable online growth. Just one example is that 1,000% increase to our stay page, which shows us people are more and more interested in coming here for a vacation instead of just driving through. We had some great partner impact. We had over 35 partner storytelling pieces last year. And we earned an international media piece in Lonely Planet France. And that's because we hosted a familiarization tour with French media. We invited the Stockmans, the Fence and Post, and Route 22 to participate in that. We were able to show off our town, and we received mention in that article because of that work. We also engage in some programming. These are the 3 I'd like to tell you about. Explore Cochrane Certified. The impetus for this program was a server telling me that whenever she had friends come, they left and went to the mountains. And I realized she probably doesn't know all the wonderful things there are to do here, so we created this free program. Last year, we trained 60 staff across 22 businesses, including several of the customer service representatives from the municipality. And we saw great results from that, a lot of excitement. We also brought back our ambassador program, which is a volunteer program. And the ambassadors, we had 12 trained. They went to 5 different events and they recorded over 550 engagements. And then finally, we do one-on-one consulting for our tourism businesses. We talk about conceptualization through to operationalization, financing, marketing, distribution. And then some of the boring stuff we did. This is the behind the scenes stuff that's so important. We spent a lot of time on it, but nobody sees it happening. 2 years ago when I presented to council, Councillor Reid questioned some of my data. He was right to question some of that data, so we engaged in a project to look more carefully at what kind of data we had access to. We worked with the Haskayne School of Business, and we're just about complete a data collection project. You're seeing some of those numbers resulted in this presentation. We updated our financial management practices so that we were ready to grow. And our board of directors have been working on an accelerator project for the past year and will continue this year. And that included a board skills matrix and strategy development. So they're really looking at who needs to be on the board to be part of tourism development. Looking forward, we've got a resident sentiment survey. That means we're going to ask our residents what they think about tourism. It's going to be a great baseline as tourism starts to grow. We'll be able to look back and see how that sentiment is changing. We're participating in economic development strategy and any future municipal strategies. We'll do a small financial sustainability strategy as part of our NRED grant. Provincial funding compliance, this is a really big one, and I honestly don't have time to explain it except to tell you that that DMF fund I told you about, it's changing, and the province has created legislation, so we'll be doing quite a bit of work to meet that legislation. We have a new marketing manager, that's Rihanna back here, so we've brought a lot of our marketing functionality in-house so it's more cohesive. We're going to increase our visitor information presence, so we've applied for a federal student grant to be able to bring visitor information officers on 5 days a week, and then we'll continue to maintain all the programs I told you about. I'm not going to make it, but I'm going to be really close, guys. So, Mayor Nagel, you asked us to tell you what council should be thinking of or what kind of support that we could use from you. And I've got 4 things for you. The first one is I ask you to support future operational funding for the CTA. So we have a bit of a chicken and an egg situation. Until we get a few more hotels, we're not going to be financially sustainable. The funding that you provide us, we take that, we use it for matching grants. So I ask you to continue to support that. I went to the Tourism Industry Alberta Conference this year. I sat with a lot of elected officials, and I want to invite this council to choose someone or 2 people to join us to understand what's happening at a provincial level and what the opportunity is in Cochrane, and to talk to other elected officials about what kind of work they're doing. I want you to come get Explore Cochrane certified. It's a great way for you to understand what's happening in this region and to be able to talk about our region when you're representing us outside. So I'll send you a link for that one. And then the last piece is probably the most important piece. I'm going to suggest that we are at an inflection point with tourism. We are sitting at a point where councillors 20 years down the road are going to look back at this time and say, they made some important decisions for tourism. Tourism is not yet a problem. It is currently an opportunity. And we have the value of a lot of our neighbors making some mistakes that we can learn from. We can do things a little bit differently, but we have to include our entire community in tourism planning. I'm missing an interagency sports meeting right now because tourism impacts how our sports teams access facilities. I participated in the river strategy because how visitors use the river impacts the health of the river. I was part of the bike lane strategy because if we can get visitors onto bikes, that will help with traffic. And I'm part of the age-friendly strategy because if the community is more available for age-friendly visitors, it's more available for our community. And the point of that is that tourism touches so many pieces of this community. It's critical that the community is an author in our tourism planning. So I think we can put Cochrane on the map. It can be a really exciting opportunity, but I think we can do it a little bit differently and be innovative and ensure our whole community is on board. And that's it. That's all I have for you. Any questions?
Okay, great. Council, can I get a motion to start the conversation? Councillor Wilson.
I would move option 1, which I assume is to accept as information. I don't actually have my agenda open, but that seems to be what it usually is. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yes, presentation is information. I'd move option 1. Thank you for the presentation, Calandra. Pleasure to be part of this board that I'm still new to, but I can tell there's a lot of enthusiasm there and a lot of expertise, and I think you're just the right person to be heading it. So thank you for being here for us. I had a couple of questions from your presentation. One was, I know that you are well versed in some of the things that are going on to the west of us. I think you're from Canmore originally, you told me. You just made the comment that our neighbors making some mistakes we can learn from. Are there any high level things that you'd care to share that our neighbors that are much more experienced in tourism to the west of us, mistakes they may have made that we still have the opportunity to learn from?
Yeah, and I don't want to signal, I don't want to signal them out because it's happening all over the world. Over-tourism is a problem, and tourism is relatively new. Tourism development is relatively new, so it's not like people understood what could happen in the future when these populations of people that could travel were going to get bigger and bigger. But over-tourism is a challenge. You see issues with communities feeling like they can no longer afford housing in their community, traffic issues, shops that service residents start to go for shops that, for tourism shops. There's environmental degradation, but we have that opportunity right now, which is really exciting to look at some of those lessons that people are learning all over the world and change how we plan tourism. So it's not that I'm afraid for the future. I just think we can see some real potential outcomes considering where we're located, and we can do things a little bit differently where we create a decision-making framework that really prioritizes our community.
Okay, thank you. And then I also had the funding question on my mind. You were just talking about how it's currently not funded, at least a small percentage of your funding comes from the town of Cochrane, and it sounds like to actually be funded from elsewhere, it would need to come from a hotel tax, and we're a ways away from that. How far are we away from that? What does it look like? What does the future of Explore Cochrane look like in the funding model?
So there is no hotel tax. There's a DMF, so Destination Marketing Fund, that will be legislated by the province. So that is happening this year. It won't change a lot for us at this moment because it will still be optional. Hotels will choose whether or not they want to participate, and we still only have a few hotels. So really for us, the growth that we need to see is either more hotels or other organizations, because it doesn't have to be hotels. It could be other organizations choosing to participate in that. And then the other piece is, are there other completely different revenue opportunities for us? Are there other grants, or are there other business style revenue models that we could look at? And that's part of what that financial sustainability strategy will investigate this year.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for being here today and the excellent presentation.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I really appreciate you leaning into the space of how can we proactively address some of the challenges that might come with successful tourism. And these are thoughts I've started to have as well. I think between, as a champion of the Trans-Canada Trail connection, and realizing, of course, the trail will go both ways. And if the train stops in Cochrane, these are transformative to our community in many ways, and one of the ways is which tourism would impact us. So we need to be forward-looking and to start to think about that. So I really appreciate you leaning into that space, and that we need to kind of learn and adapt and make sure that we don't become victims of over-tourism as we start our tourism journey. So I think I just had 3 questions for you. One of the things you had identified here was that tourism can help relieve the pressure on residential tax base. Can you translate that for us, please?
Yeah, so tourism businesses, and I wish I had notes in front of me, Tara, but I understand that hotels in particular can generate a fairly significant amount of business tax. So it's similar to, I listened to the presentation from Economic Development a few months ago. It's as we grow our commercial tax base, tourism will be a part of that growth. And hotels in particular can offer some fairly significant returns to a municipality.
Okay, because that'll have to be something that we look at, because we don't have a business tax in Cochrane, so it doesn't matter how much revenue the hotel makes. We're not going to make extra money. We just make, there's taxed much like our residents are on their assessment value. So there's not a direct correlation there.
But the more, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, the more businesses you have, the more tax revenue you will receive from businesses. So not necessarily business tax, but land-based tax from businesses.
Yeah,
is that correct?
So, yeah, you could go that way. I find that to be an indirect correlation.
For sure.
But yeah, so thank you for that one, because obviously I want to be a champion of tourism, but I want to also understand better how tourism pays for itself, and how tourism, and make sure that tourism improves the community of Cochrane, and as you flagged at the beginning of your presentation, that we don't become victims of over-tourism. So we have an amazing opportunity ahead of us, and so my questions are just coming from how do we make sure that tourism pays for itself and benefits our community and doesn't come at the cost of our taxpayers. That's where that question was coming from. Yeah. The next one, I just wanted you to expand a little bit, if you could, on your data sources. You'd identified that from previous conversations, and I had noticed that you had some good sources about how we had both international and regional tourism coming to Cochrane. And if you could speak to that, because I think often people are like, nobody comes to Cochrane. Like,
Yes.
Calgarians come here to get ice cream on sunny Saturdays. That's it.
I'm nerdily excited you've asked me this question, Tara, because we've been doing a lot of work on this. So last year, using the NRED grant, the Northern Regional Economic Development Grant, we purchased data from Destination Canada. So that's data that is triangulated. They use cell phone data, hotel data, and credit card data to understand how people are spending here. And those are people that live more than 40 kilometers away. So that was the data set that we purchased last year, and we have data from 2019 to 2025. This year, we've selected to purchase segmentation data. So that is going to tell us not necessarily how much money people are spending, but who is coming, what kinds of things are they doing, and what are they interested in, and where are they coming from. So that data set comes from a company called Environics. Same thing, they're also triangulating data in the same way, but we're also, this year, we'll be able to tell the difference between day trippers and overnighters. Right now, we're only seeing overnights, so I can see there's quite a significant overnight impact. But I can also see what kinds of visitors are coming to Cochrane, which is gonna give us, I could talk for an hour about this, but it really gives us an opportunity to look at what kinds of people do we want to attract here. The people who are coming right now, are they benefiting our community? Do we want to market to those people, or are there other segments that we can invite to come to Cochrane that will be more beneficial? So that's the data that we're buying this year.
Okay, excellent. And I'm really glad you're leading on data to make your decisions with. What's your, and it's smart investment, what's your investment budget for data? If you can share that.
Like, you want exact numbers?
No? Ballpark's good.
Data is about 10,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, a very wise investment in understanding who our visitors are. Okay, and then probably not much of a question here. I think you'd identified the Destination Marketing Fund currently as a voluntary contribution from the hotels, and I feel all but one of our hotels is participating.
The Canalta, the Super 8, and the Crossing at Ghost River all participate.
Oh, just the three, and it's the Crossing at Ghost as well. So two of the in Cochrane one. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you said the province was mandating a DMF, but
Correct.
that's not necessarily requiring all hotels to participate?
So it is not mandating participation, it is mandating how we collect that, and it also mandates we will have to create a geographic region. So we've always been Cochrane and area. What is an area? Well, we could talk about that for a long time. Right. By the end of this year, and area will have to be defined, because that will be the region that we can collect DMF fees from. And then our work begins with helping the hotels understand why those DMF fees are important. I'll be transparent with you, the province has increased their tourism levy by 2% as well. So that will be a bit of a challenge for our hotels. If they include our levy, it'll be a 9% fee that goes on top of bills.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that might be a little bit of advocacy work for the municipality to see if we can get the province to mandate that participation.
That is a bill that has already passed, Tara. So there's been work for the past year discussing that bill. And that bill just passed last week, 2 weeks ago. So I'm not sure about, I think the mandatory component, it was certainly something we advocated for, but it was not something that came to fruition. But it will restrict how those funds are spent. We don't have that exact information yet, and who can collect it. So only the DMO can collect those funds.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, both to yourself and your new staff and your volunteers. Having had the pleasure of serving on your board, I know what a hardworking group it is and how passionate you all are. So thank you to everybody for your work, much appreciated, and thank you for your great presentation.
Thanks.
Councillor Patio.
Thanks for the great presentation. I too served on the board back, I think, in my second term. It's great to see the growth that you've identified through all the data. What would you say your biggest challenge is? Does it remain the funding aspect?
Oh, what is their biggest challenge? Yeah, I mean, funding is definitely one of those challenges. I think the other challenge is identifying who we are. Like, what is Cochrane as a destination? What is Cochrane an area as a destination? What do the residents want to be? What will they buy in on from a grassroots perspective? So I don't know if that's a challenge, honestly, just that it's work that needs to occur. And then yes, funding is certainly, you know, from a DMO perspective, we are pushing the boundaries of everything that we can possibly do with the funding that we have, mostly restricted just by the human, you know, capital that we have right now. So that is certainly a challenge. I could identify 50 more projects I would love our organization to engage in if I had 30 more staff, so.
Yeah, I can see staffing definitely being probably one of the hardest things to be able to push the front face forward.
It is.
I know that at one time, previous council had talked about perhaps looking at whether or not businesses could contribute into paying a fee, or especially those related to the tourism kind of industry. Has that conversation ever gone anywhere? I know council, I think, talked about it at length, but then it kind of always seemed to stall out. I was just curious if that was still something that you feel would be beneficial going forward into the future. I know that obviously the businesses might see things differently, but I think it's still worth that conversation as we go into the future. I was just wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, so our board has not discussed that. We've been waiting to hear what was going to happen with the province from a DMF perspective. We had hoped there would be mandatory DMF fees, which would have been very beneficial to us. I would suspect, and the Director of Community Growth can confirm, that will be a conversation that will be part of tourism planning in the future, as part of what tourism planning looks like and how we could possibly fund the DMO in this community.
And is it the hope, I mean, I would have hoped too that the DMF would be like automatically mandated and then that money stay within the community. Is that kind of the hope going forward?
So DMF is not it isn't mandated that people have to pay into it, but if they pay into it, it has to come to the certified DMO in the region.
Okay. All right, I have no other questions for you, but thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Calandra. The first thing I want to say is that your marketing is terrific.
Thank you.
So welcome to the new staff member. And I always really admire the way you lift up our local businesses, and the videos you produce, just top notch. You mentioned an inflection point for tourism. You mentioned some lessons we can learn, but can you identify any communities that are doing it really well?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. No, and that's on purpose. And there's a reason.
Okay.
It is because there are communities doing tourism well, but what's happening in those communities are working for those communities. I can identify, Maori communities in New Zealand that are doing great things. Can we take those lessons and apply them to Cochrane? Absolutely not. We're such a different place.
Sure.
So I think there are lots of examples of ideas that we can use. There are bits and pieces that we can bring into our community. But what we see, honestly, on the forefront of tourism academia is that tourism planning has to be place-based. That's why your decision-making is so critical, is because it needs to be what works in this area, because what works here is not going to work for Canmore and Banff. It's not going to work for the urban community next to us. It really has to be a place-based solution. And the way that we get to those solutions is we get the people from the place to be participating in those decisions.
Right. That's the perfect transition, because my next question was, you mentioned a survey coming up, but what else are those first steps in establishing community-centered tourism?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many different ways that we can do it. I'll give you an example of something that we've recently just done in-house with our segmentation data. We created a visitor value framework. So that framework has 10 different points in it. 4 of them are economic pieces. Is this person going to contribute economically? But the other 6 are not economic measurements. They are measurements like, is this person going to engage in our community in a respectful way, for example? And each of those measurements are weighted so that when we can create a report card for different types of visitors and say, this is the kind of person we would like to market to, because not only are they going to invest in our community, they're going to respect our community, they're going to like what we have to offer, and they're going to contribute in a way that our residents are going to feel good about. So that's just one example. I think the key right now is, how is this council going to engage in the process in a way that really makes our residents co-authors of the plan?
Right. What I love about this is how it aligns with the conversations we're having about growth, just in general, for our residents. so much in common there. Very, very sharp left here. Curious about tourism business. I know a lot of our new tourism business comes through your office. Are you seeing a lot of growth in tourism business? And I was curious what trends you might be spotting.
Yeah, we're starting to see, we've got a few new Indigenous tourism operators that are coming on board. We have people that are doing wildlife tours. But the reality is right now, starting a tourism business, like you really have to be passionate about it because we don't have huge volume yet. So these are the sort of the mavericks of our tourism industry who care so much about it that they're getting involved. And a lot of our businesses are dual businesses. You know, Fence and Post is a great example of a business that gets tons of visitors, but obviously they're also, you know, they have residents that are coming as well. A lot of our retail businesses, it's sort of that dual income stream. So the purely tourism businesses, they're coming. There's a few I can't tell you about yet because of confidentiality. So there's definitely some neat things on the horizon. But we are still in that emerging phase of tourism.
Sure. I love that dual nature idea. There's just so much more to learn here. So I want to dive in further. I would love to go to a conference with you and learn more. Yes. I would love to become an Explore Cochrane certified Cochraneite. And I think that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Calandra, and thank you to the board, the people who are present here and people watching online. I have two questions. Looking at our visitor mix, what gap exists in terms of adult-oriented tourism experiences, such as culinary, culture, or evening economy offerings, and how might we thoughtfully expand in the space while maintaining Cochrane's character?
Yeah, so you're asking kind of about our tourism inventory, what products we have available or experiences?
Like for young adults, like there's after 8 o'clock.
For young adults specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of our experiences are either targeted at adults or families. They're not necessarily independently for young adults, and we don't see young adults traveling by themselves. They don't. They're coming with their families. So if you're looking at family-oriented tourism, you know, regionally, we have things like Yamnuska Wolf Dog Sanctuary. We have Callaway Park. We have a couple of different agritourism experiences, farm experiences. Within our community, there's also lots of arts and culture that is starting to emerge. So you can go learn soapstone carving, you can learn how to paint alcohol inks, you can learn how to do beading, you can learn how to do hide tanning. So those cultural experiences are really cool bonding experiences. And then of course SLS is a great place that, you know, for both our residents and visitors, for young adults, and then just some of the outdoor experiences. So going to Glenbow Ranch and doing a hike there, going to Big Hill Springs, doing some skiing in, you know, West Bragg Creek.
Okay, thanks. The next one is, with the evolving national initiatives such as the proposed Canada Pass concept to encourage domestic travel, how can Cochrane strategically align itself to benefit from increased visitor movement across the country?
Yeah, I ask myself that question every day. We've got 4 million people driving past us on the highway, and that really is the crux of what we do. How can we be part of that? A lot of what we're doing right now, Councillor Singh, is inviting people to stay here. So people come, honestly, the truth is, if you're coming from Japan for your once-in-a-lifetime vacation to the Canadian Rockies, you're not going to stay in Cochrane. You're going to stay in Banff and spend that money. But if you're coming for the 3rd time and you just cannot stomach paying $800 a night, this is where you start to look at regions that are outside of Banff. And we're doing 2 things. First off, we're marketing ourselves as a hub, a doorstep to the Rockies. So come stay with us, spend your evenings here in our much more chill and relaxed community, and go visit places like Drumheller, like the Rockies, like the South Cowboy Trail. So that's one of the things we're doing. And then the other thing that we really need to do, as I shared with Laura, is we need to determine an identity here. There is one that's already emerging. When you look at Bragg Creek, when you look at us, when you look at Sundre, we're different from the Canadian Rockies. There is a destination that could develop in this region, and it's not something that I discussed in my presentation, but there's a lot of regional partnership discussions happening right now. I am talking with Sundre, I am talking with Bragg Creek. How could we be a place, the place that is on the verge of the Canadian Rockies that has a distinct identity? So those are really the 2 things that we're doing.
Just a follow-up. The board was part of, like the organized Explore Cochrane was part of the last year's rodeo for 3 days. or?
Yeah, so Discovery Days was an event that we created in partnership with the Cochrane Lions Rodeo, and the intention was similar to Stampede, to expand the footprint of that already very successful event. And that event has become an arts and culture event, arts, culture, and history. So people get to see live birds, they get to learn high tanning, they do carriage rides through the ranch and learn about roping. There's a whole bunch of activities that they do. So that's been really neat for us to partner with so many organizations on that event.
I think it was well attended, and kudos to all the organizations.
Yeah, we had over 2,000 individual visitors.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Gale?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just have a quick question. Do you have any thoughts on a municipal accommodation tax and whether that would be a possibility? I know that's not really very specific to Cochrane, but I believe Airdrie has put forward a resolution for AB Munis to advocate for a MAT. So I'm curious as to whether or not you think that would be beneficial, and if it would replace the DMO, do you think that would kind of replace that model?
The DMF?
Yeah.
I believe the legislation impacts that question. And so I don't know the legislation thoroughly. I don't know if it specifically indicates that a MAT is no longer something that is available here in Alberta. What I would say is that we have a 6% visitor levy. We have a 3% DMF. If you were to put an accommodation tax on top of that, it would certainly negatively impact our hotels in this community. It would be one of the highest accommodation taxes in all of the province. But I really would need to look more at that legislation. It is possible that legislation makes it not possible to have a MAT at this point, although I'm not certain.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I just know Ontario does it, and I think that's kind of their way municipalities get that piece of money. I don't think you could tax all three, but I'm just curious if you have.
It's a huge conversation in the tourism world right now is, our DMOs need to be funded so that we can do this planning. And I really think the key piece is that the reason that municipalities need that funding is A, for infrastructure, and B, for planning purposes. And if your DMO is aligned with you, if you're doing the same work, then the same things can happen regardless of which location the money is going to. And there's visitor communities, Bend, Oregon is a great example, where they are funding infrastructure projects at this point because their DMF is so large that they've got that revenue to put into different projects.
Okay.
We're not there yet, just to be clear, not there for infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, and I'd also be interested in attending a conference. So
Yeah,
just let me know.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Patio?
I just wanted to ask one more quick question. Do you have any relationship with the Airbnbs here in town for getting out even some information about tourism into people that offer places to stay? Because I'm not even sure exactly how many that we have operating necessarily within the Cochrane area, but it's quite a few.
198 as of 2024.
Perfect. You've got the number for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, just curious if you have any way to get them that information, or to. And I realize that inviting owners in, some of them don't even necessarily live here, but if there's a way for that to also be a vessel for you to get that information out.
Yeah, so I think that probably goes to our resource constraints, reaching out to 198 Airbnbs. I know, I wouldn't have the exact numbers. Economic development would be able to tell you how many of them are actually registered with the town of Cochrane. I think it is significantly less. So even finding them and then being able to contact them would be a challenge. And Airbnb is actually a great example when we talk about sustainable tourism planning. That's probably something that we really need to look hard at and make some determinations about how we want Airbnb to evolve in our community. And so most DMOs do not have relationships with Airbnbs because so much of our funding comes from the hotels. I'd say there's lots of opportunity there, and that is absolutely a question that needs to be part of our tourism planning.
All right, I think that just leaves me. I have two questions. You talked about a catchment area being defined. What process are we going through for that to happen? Is that something that's done in consultation with your organization, or is the province just sorting it out on their own? How does that work?
So we will put in a application with a catchment area. The process that we're undergoing is that we will talk to the Foothills DMO, we'll talk to Explore Canmore Kananaskis, and we'll talk to the Sundre DMO as well as Tourism Calgary. Because if we all put in for overlapping boundaries, then the province makes a decision. So ideally for us, we're having conversation with all of those partner DMOs and deciding which catchment area is ours. The good news is it's not like there's giant pockets of hotels that people are gonna fight over in this region. I'm not gonna try to get Dead Man's Flats into our, into our area, although that would be quite beneficial. There's not a ton of accommodation. And you asked one of our biggest challenges, lack of accommodation from a tourism development perspective. That is one of our challenges. So the process is that our board will decide a generalized area, and then we will talk with all 4 of those partners and ensure that we're all in the same boat before that application goes in sometime in the fall, once that's defined.
And a follow-up question on that, could Rocky View County be part of what we're looking at? Is there?
It will be. Rocky View County will 100% be a part of what we're looking at. Many of our partners are in that region. That's not really going to impact our DMF fees unless someone builds a hotel there, but absolutely yes.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking for the future, I could see a lot of future expansion around Callaway Park and Bragg Creek. Would that be?
Bragg Creek is probably the only portion that I don't know what's going to happen there. Right now, there is a tourism strategy that indicates that Bragg Creek will work with the Foothills Tourism Association. They are much smaller and much less developed than us. I would really like to see Bragg Creek join us. So that's probably actually the only place that we're going to need to figure out between those 2 organizations what happens there.
But Harmony and Callaway Park would fall within our catchment area? Okay.
That we will be requesting Harmony and Callaway Park within our catchment area, yes.
Excellent. Excellent. And then my second question was with regards to the identity. I think a lot of people, including myself, would see Cochrane's identity as involving a strong Western heritage theme. Is that something that has been discussed when we're thinking about like what is Cochrane's tourism identity?
Yeah, certainly, like from my perspective, there's a good mixed bag of Western identity, arts and culture, and outdoor activities. But I think really determining the identity needs to be a group activity. So as much as I would love to just say, great, we're Western, or we're outdoor adventure, or whatever it is that I would like us to be, it's the process that needs to happen where we kind of all have some agreement. And I think it's also a regional process, because I think this region is quite distinctive. We just have to pull out those pieces. There's the Western identity, but there's also the Indigenous heritage and the marrying of those 2 identities, which is fascinating in the tourism world. Sorry, I'm nerding out here. But, and then we also have those wide open spaces, that wide natural space that isn't full yet. So there's a couple directions we could go in, and we just have to figure out which direction we're going to take.
Great, that all sounds good. Have you thought about the process you may go through to solidify that identity?
No, that's an upcoming process. So as you know, the municipality is working on some tourism planning. So that will happen after economic development planning, and we look forward to participating in how that process evolves.
Okay, great. Well, please keep us in mind when that conversation comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks very much for coming. Council, was there anything else? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Thanks for all the work you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. It was carried unanimously. And that brings us to our emerging item, 7A, Mr. Kevin Blanchette with a highway update.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council. As the Director of Strategic Services, I'm here this evening to present the advocacy update on the provincial highways. As you know, Council's advocacy priorities are our administration's advocacy roadmap. They tell us where to focus our messaging, our relationships, and our efforts. We know that traffic is a key issue for a lot of Cochranites. Our community is intersected by 2 provincial highways, and it's crucial that these routes are well maintained to support local traffic and the daily flow of goods, services, and people. Provincial highways are one of Council's current advocacy priorities, which means that we have the opportunity to meet with ministers and regional neighbors. And when we do that, we highlight the importance of these highways for our residents and for our economic development. As you know, both Cochrane and the Government of Alberta have made significant investments in building and upgrading roads and pathways in Cochrane. The Highway 1A 22 interchange project, for example, included expanding lanes, creating new bridges over Big Hill Creek, replacing the CP rail overpass, and creating new interchange ramps and roundabouts. Prior to this, the town also saw the widening of Highway 1A. That project was approved in the fall of 2020 as council recognized an opportunity to utilize provincial grants to support these roadway improvements. All of this work and investment is improving the highway corridor that it already experiences heavy traffic for both our local and regional users. This meaningful progress is creating real momentum for the next phase of work, which is the expansion of Highway 22 South. We began advocating to the province for the engineering design for a Highway 22 Bull River crossing as the initial step in the work to expand Highway 22 South. As part of our update this evening, we are very pleased to report that the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, Devin Dreeshen, advised the town that it will support the engineering design for the future structure to accommodate Highway 22 over the Bull River. While this approval relates to engineering design only and does not represent a commitment to construction funding or timelines therein, this is still a significant milestone for Cochrane. Completion of design work strengthens the case for future capital funding and reduces uncertainty and improving our project readiness. It moves the expansion of Highway 22 South forward. We're seeing progress because of sustained advocacy by both council and administration and strong provincial partnerships. The work doesn't stop here. We'll continue working with the government of Alberta to move the Highway 22 South forward, building on the progress we've made with design. As this work advances, we'll stay closely connected with impacted stakeholders and regional partners to make sure local perspectives are shared with the province. We'll also celebrate the completion of the 1A22 interchange because that too is a major milestone for our community, and we want to recognize the government of Alberta's support for this important work. And as long as provincial roadways remain a council focus, the expansion of Highway 22 South will continue to be a key area of administration's advocacy. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on this important work, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Great news. Council, any questions? Councillor Patio.
I only have one. I know that at one point, Council mentioned the 567 and Highway 22, and I realize that's outside of Cochrane's boundaries, but obviously it's a fairly significant intersection that sees lots of accidents, sometimes way too many and quite serious accidents. Do you have any update on whether or not there is going to be looked at, whether or not lights, four-way stop, anything to be happening?
Not a formal update for you at this point. We continue to advocate on behalf of the region around that particular intersection, but I don't have a formal update on any action. They are aware of our concerns, and Rockview County's brought the same concerns, but nothing that I can share with you at this time.
Okay, and I guess when will work be fully completed on the interchange as we know of it right now?
Well, I don't have a specific date, but hopefully, I don't know if that's going to be in the next few months. I don't know, Drew, do you have an update from infrastructure?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Patio, it'll be complete this summer. So all the work and the improvements and all the lanes will be open. And then further to your question, we were at IMC last week and we were talking with our partners from Rockview County, and on 567, the plans are for a roundabout. Just in terms of timing, they weren't able to confirm that. We also discussed Lock End Road and Rockview's desire to have lights at that intersection. They indicated that they believe that they're occurring here soon, so improving the commuting safety for our residents as well.
Perfect, awesome. That's great news all the way around.
Just for clarity, IMC is intermunicipal collaboration between the town of Cochrane and Rockview County.
A question about this announcement. Do we know the expected date that the engineering work will be done, or only that the funding is in place? Yeah, just that we anticipate the RFP will go out in the fall. Okay. Don't know the timelines for that or the timelines for the engineering, but it's a pretty significant engineering project, so I would expect that it will take some time. And then the next step after that's funded, there'll be an estimated price, and then we have to wait for it to make its way into a provincial budget for
Yeah,
construction.
absolutely. But for sure, that's the next steps, but this is a great first step to be able to get that up into the capital project list in terms of that timelines. But I still think from a horizon, we're looking at, probably 5 to 10 years on a construction basis.
Okay, all right, thank you. Council, can we get a motion to accept as information? Councillor Federico?
I'll make that motion.
Should have started with that. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Council.
All right. Bit of a lighter agenda this evening. So we have no other delegations or business, and that brings us into our notices of motion. I believe Councillor Singh has 2 of them. So why don't you start with 8A?
So the 8 days, as we approach the warmer months, I respectfully request that council consider allowing seasonal flexibility for patio spaces where it's feasible, similar to accommodations provided in previous summers. With longer days and improved weather, residents are naturally drawn to outdoor gathering spaces. Allowing limited seasonal patio expansion in appropriate locations would enhance community vibrancy while providing meaningful support to our local businesses navigating rising operational cost. As we heard from the tourism presentation earlier, I think it's also another way to attract and retain our local businesses and entrepreneurs. So recommended action that council direct administration to explore the reintroduction of a seasonal patio expansion program similar to previous years with appropriate restrictions to maintain safe pedestrian passage and with consideration for streamlined approvals and clear operation guidelines, and report back to council with options for a time-limited pilot for 2026 season by April 30, 2026.
Great. Any questions for Councillor Singh about his motion? Councillor Wilson first.
Thanks. I was just hoping to ask administration a little bit about what problem we're actually solving here. And I think I know the answer, and that's that we're saving potential businesses from going through a more onerous development permit process if we were to go ahead with this notice of motion. Just hoping for a little clarity on that.
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, yes, we had done this during COVID or just afterwards, and just trying to get more people utilizing patios and enjoying the summer hours. So certainly we have some tools that currently assist businesses, but giving this direction, we can explore different options, and I know the team has been already doing some work on this.
Okay, thanks for that. It seems like an obvious good thing to do. I'm in support.
Councillor McDonald.
I was curious to admin also, is April 30th reasonable?
The only challenge I have with April 30th, and I was quickly looking, is that we don't have a council day on that, so we actually can't report back on that day. So my suggestion was going to be the beginning of May, but certainly I think based on Councillor Singh's desire to have this, it's really a summer pilot that we would be looking to support. So I think there's been some background work already completed on this, and I would say if a friendly amendment, perhaps the first council meeting in May, when we can actually, May 5th, 4th, would be a suggestion for that.
Okay, so I'll leave that and we'll get back to that, I guess. And then I was just curious if this was successful during COVID, and we're gonna bring it back possibly now as a pilot, at what point can we just make this a permanent summer process for Cochrane businesses?
Through the chair to Councillor McDonald, I think one of the things, anytime that we do work like this, perhaps part of it would be to do a report back to council after the summer and see the success. We did have quite a bit of uptake when we did it before, but we haven't had, I don't believe we've had the same interest since that time.
Okay.
But we've always had tools, but I think some advertisement of this and bringing this forward will hopefully bring some more people out in the community who are interested, or businesses, and then certainly we can monitor this and at the end report back to council in the fall, and then have some options in terms of permanence. Perfect. At that point.
Okay, thanks.
May the 4th be okay with you?
like whatever amendments, yes.
I just couldn't contain myself. Thank you. Councillor Federico.
Would this lead to any conversation about the possibility of what it would look like to have a road closure in summer at all? I know it's been discussed many times, and I actually wanted to give a shout out to Valerie earlier, because one of the events that I always hear a lot about was the Thursday night markets that used to happen on Main Street. I was just curious of whether or not, while this is covering the patio space, could this also perhaps, as you go through the pilot project, deal with maybe some engagement around what that could possibly look like, even if we did a Thursday night closure again, or I'm not exactly sure, but I just think it's worth, if we're gonna invest some time and some energy into this, if we don't look at those possibilities maybe going forward, obviously not for this year, but going forward maybe into the year after.
Through the chair to Councillor Federico, I think that's a bit of a larger question than the original scope of this. I'm not saying that we cannot do that, but I just think that it would be a much larger conversation. Historically, when we've talked to some of the business community downtown, there have been concerns about even the Thursday closure. Personally, I think it would be very valuable and leaning on the experience of people like Valerie would be wonderful for us to explore it. But I think it is a much different conversation than the original proposal here.
Okay, yeah, I would add that I immediately started thinking of how we could go even bigger with this. So maybe we'll get through the first step and then see where we can go. Certainly some things like night markets or things like that downtown could be pretty cool. Anybody else have any questions for Councillor Singh? Are we doing May the 4th? Okay, all right. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Looking forward to more information on that. Please proceed with 8B, Councillor Singh.
So the second one, we have a seniors engagement session. Myself, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Gale, and Councillor McDonald attended the seniors engagement session, along with the members of administration. And during that session, many questions and concerns were raised that I feel were in follow-up. While some of these matters fall within municipal responsibilities, others may involve our federal and provincial partners, healthcare providers, and external agencies. I encourage all partners to come together in a spirit of collaboration so we can identify solutions and take meaningful next steps for our community. Recommended action that Council direct administration to review the questions and concerns raised during the seniors engagement session and report back to the Council with an action plan outlining potential responses, including collaboration with relevant provincial, federal, and community partners where applicable prior to July 13, 2026, and all the 13 questions were attached to that in there as well.
All right, Councillor, is that everything, Councillor Singh?
That's, yeah.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. I just had a clarifying question about this, Councillor Singh. Thank you for inviting me to the event. I will say that our poor CAO got grilled pretty hard by that group of seniors and stood up to the battery of questions very well. I see 13 emanated from this. Some of them I see, I'm fairly certain a municipality couldn't afford to fix, and some of them are just straight out of our jurisdiction, as you just said. Are we just seeking a report back to council in a council session about answers to the 13 questions and it stops there? Is that what the notice of motion is to achieve today?
So I think the senior engagement session, like when we did that, the concerns were, okay, we do all those sessions, surveys and all that, the information is not replied back or is not conveyed back to the people. So this is more about, yes, we heard those things and what we're gonna do with those questions or concerns and report back to the people. And they're gonna be one more, before we go for break and stuff, there's gonna be another session. Don't know what the format is gonna look like, could be council or different providers, but they're gonna be a seniors engagement session, like, in July. It could be a barbecue, we don't know yet, haven't planned yet, but they're gonna be before the end of the summer, so that people would know that, yes, we're working on it. And yet, to your point, some might fall under, and some might say, hey, it might take us 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, or it's fall under provincial, but at least people will get their answers back as well. Like, could be through council or could be through different format, yeah.
Okay, great. As I just said, I thought it was an extremely well-run event, and I think all these questions are at the top of mind of many people in our community, and it would be good to get a report back in front of council to at least use as a microphone to answer some of these. And I see that as strictly useful and something that could be easily accomplished by administration, because we're simply asking for information in return, if I understand. So would have my support.
Councillor Patio?
Thank you. Could some of these come back for, I believe the state of Cochrane, or I don't even know sure what it's being called anymore. I understand that's moving to fall. So maybe that would be more of a realistic time when, rather than it coming back in a completely independent report, for it to be included as part of the bigger report of State of Cochrane, when we're going to obviously be talking to all community members, because kind of like what Councillor Wilson just said, I think these questions, I absolutely agree with you, but I don't think it just affects seniors today. I think it can affect people who are coming up into the age group of wanting to know future plans, and rather than maybe directing a separate report, it might be beneficial to address it to the Cochrane community overall, especially for people looking to bring maybe their parents here or other family members.
Council, I don't mean to interrupt, but the previous item had been previously introduced. This was just being introduced today, so it is not really to be debated, just procedurally.
That's my bad. Apologies. Yep, I knew that. I was just so busy thinking about it and reading it. I do that. We will come back to this in 2 weeks. That is a notice of motion. Yeah, that is 100% my failure to not flag that. Thank you. Okay, anybody else have a notice of motion? We'll come back to that item in 2 weeks. Okay, well, then that brings us into my mayor's report. As always, it's been a busy few weeks since my last mayor's report. I've had quite a few meetings and conversations on a wide range of topics, but I will focus tonight's report on 3 quick but large things. Firstly, the reassignment of the South Bow Landine school site, which you all know about. I just wanted to share that since last week, I have received a large number of positive comments and messages from families who are very appreciative of the council's decision to support the Franco-Sud school request. Additionally, I also wanted to assure council as well as the public that myself and our administration are actively planning to meet with Rocky View School Division very soon to discuss what we can do to ensure Cochrane continues to keep pace with Alberta government's funding for public schools for their sites as well. And as I said last week, I'm very confident we will be able to meet all of their school site needs as the needs arise. Second up, about 10 days ago, I attended the AB Muni's Spring Leaders Caucus in Edmonton with Drew and Christine at the end of March. It was a great opportunity to engage with the Alberta government. Councillor Singh joined us for a short period as well. When the Premier gave an address and took questions from the floor, I was very quick to get to the microphone, and I asked her the question you all sent me there to ask, which was about offsite levies, and I made the case that we would like the Alberta government to expand the scope of what can be included in that. She did not say no, but she did not say yes, but we all know how these things work, and you kind of need to mention it 1,000 times before there is action taken. And I would say for sure the Premier did note the interest from the group about it, because my comments and questions received a pretty enthusiastic round of applause from the crowd, which she obviously noticed. And then she directed us to meet with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and Minister Williams very quickly came to us and extended his business card and said, hey, let's get together and meet. So we're going to be meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs hopefully sometime this spring to talk about our capital needs and funding needs and the way they can help us. At the convention, I also had a brief opportunity to discuss the importance of our highway infrastructure with Minister Delegations, which we just heard about tonight, and he was quick to share his support for and understanding of Cochrane's traffic needs. And so, given the update from Mr. Blanchette and that conversation, I want to take this opportunity to properly thank the Premier as well as Minister Delegations for funding the engineering work for the next phase on Highway 22. This is a critical step toward the ultimate construction of the important highway corridor, as was already highlighted. And lastly, Councillors Gale, Wilson, and myself met with 3 members of Rocky View as well as administration from both sides for the IMC, or the Intermunicipal Committee meeting. We are embarking upon some very important work to develop policy documents and plans that will govern our shared future. namely an intermunicipal development plan, or IDP, and the intermunicipal collaboration framework, ICF. These are both required by the province for us to do them. We have a 25-year-old IDP and it really needs updated. But we're not just doing it out of legislative requirements. There is a very real desire from all parties to really update these documents so we can plan for a good shared future. Together, these two documents will be critically important in shaping our futures alongside one another. Both sides expressed a sincere desire to do a better job planning for and managing growth, including coming up with some plans for where neither of our municipalities want to grow. So we're talking about where we want to grow and where we want to see there not be development. There seemed to be a general consensus that unbridled growth is not in either of our shared best interests. And there was also a very clear willingness and agreement to work together wherever possible to share our services, infrastructure, and facilities, such as utilities and recreation. Additionally, we also spoke briefly about a shared desire to protect green spaces and natural areas in our region. Again, everyone was very open to and excited about this. Our staff from both sides, both municipalities, are working together to come up with the draft versions of the IDP and ICF, and then the IMC working group will see it again, and there will be appropriate public consultation and stakeholder engagement along the way before it comes back to council for actual ratification. All told, there's been some pretty big, important stuff happening here up at the Ranch House the past few weeks, and I'd like to thank our administration for all their hard work in making it all possible. And then I guess last but not least, I also will have a notice of motion coming forwards in 2 weeks regarding our growth management, as we have discussed quite a bit in our strat planning and stuff like that. So that is my mayor's report. Can I get a motion to accept it? Councillor McFadden?
Excellent.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Can I get a motion?
Sure. I'll make the motion to accept your report, and I have I think one question around the recreation. Is there any conversations about the trails and really activating their open space master plan? I think you certainly had some discussions in the past about the value of actually partnering to get a regional trail from Big Hill Springs Provincial Park through to the ranch, and then also some conversations about making sure we can advance the recreational trails from our southeast corner to Harmony. Is it? I know both of those are in their open space master plan, and I'd love to see some motion on that.
That did come up, and I would invite Councillor Gale and Councillor Wilson to add anything else I might miss. But I think where we landed throughout the conversation was a general willingness through the IDP to really identify areas that we want to make sure are protected for those types of uses. So in the past years, you remember the last council had this big map with these green belts. We said, hey, these places should be protected and activated for outdoor recreation. There was a willingness expressed in the IDP we would start by identifying zones.
Nice.
Did either of my colleagues who were in attendance have anything to add on that? It was talked about, but that was the action item. I think was identifying zones in the IDP.
Yep.
Anything else?
Those are my questions.
All right. Okay, council, I'll call the question. All in favor of my mayor's report? Carried unanimously. Next up, council reports. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I haven't done one of these in a bit, so perhaps some of these dates are a bit old. On March 18th, I was able to attend a short portion of the Youth Summit organized here by FCSS and the FRN, and I was so impressed by the programming offered to our youth. I had a child attending the summit, and what a wonderful opportunity. I saw her engaged in sessions on housing, mental health, healthy relationships, and nutrition, and we are just so lucky to have these offerings for our kids in Cochrane, so thank you to everyone who programmed that day. On March 19th, I joined Councillors Singh and Fedeko for the Fireside School Grade 6 Shark Tank. The Grade 6 were tasked with presenting alternative energy sources to the panel of judges, and they were outstanding. A big thank you to Grade 6 teacher Miss Kate Duong for having us. Over the last couple weeks, I've attended board meetings with the NEP Task Force, Rocky View Handybus, and the Cochrane Society for Housing Options. Through the NEP Task Force, I was asked to attend and introduce the speaker for their kickoff of the Education series. This speech was called Birding 101. A full house gathered at Frank Willis to learn from local expert Kristen Pearson. And by the end of the session, I was ready to buy my first set of birding binoculars. We have such an abundance of wildlife and natural spaces in our community, and I encourage everyone to get involved and learn more. I believe advocacy starts best when you appreciate. Cochrane Environmental Action Committee and the NEP Task Force are doing such great work together, and I'll bring notice of future events here. And finally, a local group near and dear to my heart is called Inclusion Cochrane, and we are hosting our first monthly event on April 21st at the library. This group is dedicated to creating community and conversation for our disability community. This will occur the third Tuesday of every month going forward, and we welcome people of all ages and disabilities, along with family and caregivers. On the April 21st session, we're hoping to include a presentation on the provincial transition from AISH to ADAP with a Q&A, but right now we're waiting for our presenter to confirm their attendance. Details on that will be available on the Cochrane Public Library website.
All right, Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, just a brief report. I completed my day-long SDAB training, so I can now participate in those meetings. Yes! I urge everyone to do those trainings so that you can all serve on this board. And then the SLS Rec board had their meeting last Friday, I believe it was. And so one of the things that we've been working for there is to make sure the recruitment of board directors, so that recruitment process is in place right now, in process right now. I think they said they had 14 applicants, and so that's great that we really have an opportunity for the public members to be involved in the leadership there, so that was great news. And yeah, and they're doing great work there. Really, really impressed with the quality of their financial reporting, actually, and their strategies around as much as their recovery as possible and how they can make the best use of the facility, and their constant evaluation of which areas of the rec center are perhaps underused and where they can, you know, adapt that and the different strategies they've got. So been very impressed with that board overall, and I just wanted to share that update.
Just a very brief one for me. You did an excellent job, Mayor Nagel, of describing our intermunicipal committee meeting. I thought it was really great. It's a really positive atmosphere and a group that I think we can absolutely work with. I thought the three members that are part of their committee are the three that are representing the areas directly surrounding Cochrane, and they understand very well the needs of this community and the needs of their surrounding area, which are very similar to our community. So I'm quite optimistic about what will come from that group. I know we're trying to find our way post CMRB about how we're going to collaborate and fund a whole bunch of different things, and I think we're going to see some big things out of that committee in the coming months. So I thought it was a really positive meeting. And just as you said, Mayor Nagel, I also have a notice of motion coming next meeting. It's a big financial one regarding offsite levy optimization and infrastructure timing. So we have a meeting, lots to talk about on the notice of motion front 1 week from now.
I have a pretty brief one as well. Over the past couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to attend the Cochrane Youth Summit, and it was so wonderful to see youth from our community engaging in important conversations and building their leadership skills. I always appreciate the chance to hear directly from youth about their issues, ideas, and opportunities that matter the most. I also had the chance to visit the grade 3 students at Glenbow Elementary with Mayor Nagel, where it was so much fun, honestly. It was exciting to connect with the students, answer their many questions, and entertain their curiosity about local government and our community. I was also very pleased to see the recent engineering approval announcement, and I want to extend my thanks to Minister Dreeshen and the provincial government for their support. This is really exciting news for our community and an important step forward. In addition, I also wanted to add that I attended the recent IMC meeting with Rocky View. These conversations are important, and I'm confident that we'll be able to make some good progress on this over the next little bit here. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that transpires long term. That's all for me.
Great. Anything else? Okay. All right. Can I get a motion to approve all those?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. All right. And next up, we are going to have some closed sessions. Why don't we take a quick break while the piece switches over? Any motion to go into closed session first? Who would like to make that motion? Councillor McDonald. All in favor? Carried. All right, can I get a motion to come out of closed session? Do we need the stream to turn on first? Yeah. We're live? Can I please get a motion to come out of closed session? Councilor McDonald?
I make that motion.
All in favor? Carried. And do we have a motion arising from the closed session that a councillor would like to make? Councillor Singh?
The council direct administration to proceed with the purchase 601, 62, 5 River Heights Drive, Bearland Unit 4748, off condominium plan 2310100 for 650K and 550K plus GST respectively to be allocated from the municipal infrastructure reserves.
Okay. Any conversation? Sorry? Without breaching in camera confidentiality. Councilor McFadden?
Thank you. So I'm going to be voting against this one, not because I disagree with the decision itself. I just disagree with the amount of time council was given to consider it. And so based on my principles that I require time to make financial decisions and consideration, I'll be voting against this.
Anybody else on council care to comment? I'll comment. I appreciate that administration has brought us something that we can act on expeditiously, and we'll be voting in favor of it. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Those opposed? Councilor McFadden. All right. Thank you. And so that's that section. We do need to go back into closed session for our remaining items. Can I get a motion to go back into closed session, council? Councilor Fedeko, all in favor? Carried. Okay.